poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're lovers in the world. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're lovers in the world. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all the void light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross through the song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another vow. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines. Welcome to Bridges Programming, Sunday on the Front Stoop. We are doing this program 1 hour earlier because we're on travel. Right now, we're just outside of Washington, D.C. Next to me, to my right, is Susan Comont. You're listening to Bridges Programming, and it's bridgesprogramming.com, and that's what you're seeing on your screen flying by. We're doing this, believe it or not, out of a hotel room a few miles away from the capital of Washington, D.C. This is brought to you by the HREM.org, Human Renewable Energy Measure, and Renew the Earth, renewtheearth.org as well. That's a nonprofit organization. Our job here is to, on Sunday on the Front Stoop, the longest stoop in the world, we're here to try to sort of explain what's wrong with the system and how to fix it, and we're going to tell you how you could do something about it without spending any money, without joining any groups. With us on the other end of the line and from New York is Dennis Carius. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
Oh, good, Jeff.
And
Great
Dennis,
to be here.
and you picked out the topics today, did you not?
Yes, I did.
So what's your topics?
Well, I mean, one of those would be, could we save our planet if we had solar panels on a lot of these roofs up there instead of burning all that, gas? If you get behind your car, you don't want to breathe what's coming out of that exhaust pipe, but it's going in the atmosphere and it's staying there. It's getting worse, and it's causing climate change and global warming. That would be one topic. And another topic would be more political, because we have somebody who's running for president, and he said not just should our grade school be free and our high school be free. I really like this. He said even colleges should be free, because when you're a graduate from high school, you are able to go on the internet, whatever major you choose, you can do 95% of your education over the internet, and then maybe 5% the teacher gives you those tests. So I really think that we don't just need free grade school and free high school in this country. We need free college. But the problem is, when those kids become 18 years old, they graduate high school, they're told, if you can't afford college, I know it's very expensive, to go overseas, either the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and after 4 years you come back, you can afford it. So we never have to ask where our troops are coming from. But really, it's sad because we have a president very close to where you're living right now. Barack Obama said all our troops were coming home in 2013, and then he said no, 2015. Well, now he's pushing it out. He won't even be president after 2016. So all we have to do is bring our troops home, and we really don't need to have college as expensive as it is now. It should be less expensive than kindergarten, because you do have to teach those 5-year-olds, whereas when you're a college graduate, you can go on the internet and do over 95% of your education over the net.
Well, yeah, that's true, but that's sometimes very difficult for people too, because but let me speak to what Dennis is just, I think that the internet has huge potential for educational value, and people are trying to use it already, and we're going to try to use it too. But what you're saying and what I'm hearing when you go through all this is that people, and this is a good thing actually, but we're not recognizing it yet, is that it's important that before we start working our work life, that there's a lot more education needed now than ever before. It's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic when we were all farming families, and there were other skills that were more important that didn't need to be taught in a school atmosphere. Then high school became necessary because you needed more exposure to the world and history and the full implications of various sciences that people have been contributing to over hundreds and hundreds of years, and the changes in mathematics. So in high school, you can get to that, but now we need even more than what young people can be exposed to in high school for the most part. In general, you can still get a job out of high school, and you can still, work in an economy and be very successful. You don't have to, if you're highly self-motivated and have a lot of resources to draw on, monetary resources, family resources, say, business connections. If those things are available to you, when you get out of high school, you might not need to go on to college and make friendships and more connections and get more knowledge that qualifies one way or another
for a better job.
For the kind of jobs that are evolving now in most more developed societies. But you still have to keep in mind that most of the population of the world is still surviving with subsistence farming. Farming is still worldwide.
Physical labor is terribly important.
And so we don't want to, just think that because we're in a developed country that our dynamics and the needs of the young people as they're being educated here are the same or even equivalent in any way to what other parts of the world need. But right now, you're right, Dennis. It's either you can afford to get the education that's necessary in this country, but you have to pay for it, or you, if you're not able to pay for it, you don't have family connections, etc., blah, blah, blah. Your choice is, to join the military, and they may train you in a very important skill that you can use later, or they may not, or they may promise that they will support your education after you do your commitment to them, or they may not, because they can change their
rules.
Their rules, because they're their rules. It's still not, a for sure type thing, and it's very important, I think, at this point in our social development in developed countries to recognize that the kind of education that you can get in college has got to be it's got to be recognized as part of the whole package that needs to be presented to everyone, every student. As they come out of high school, they go right into the next level.
Country.
And it has to be free.
Every country, every
and
state.
I applaud
Bernie
Sanders for actually bringing this up. It's a very important. Things are moving along. We are developing new technologies.
Well, Dennis hit
youngsters need to understand more about them, and
Dennis,
they want to.
You hit a lot. You had a lot of points there, and I want to go through each point. First of all, how do you know you can get 95% of your education through the internet? And secondly, I think the reason why you're saying that is kindergarten requires physical people being in a room to interact with the teachers and other children. Where as you're an adult, you don't need the education we're giving a kindergartner. You need different education. And unfortunately, the learning process of adults are pretty stupid because they follow like lemmings. They just go over cliffs.
Lemmings.
They just follow one another.
Well, how can you assert that of everyone?
Well, because I look at the news, and the news today, we just got an email from someone who sent us something about the way planets are working. Now, I don't watch television, but because we're in a hotel last night.
Planets? You mean islands?
Islands, and I watched the several news things and documentaries, and they were talking about how islands were created. Well, it's like all of a sudden the whole world's talking about how islands were created. Maybe
it's just a coincidence.
Well, maybe a coincidence, but it seems to me whenever you have an election year, and the elections are rigged, someone like Bernie Sanders can't possibly get into office. The system is rigged. He has a popular vote, and I can beat the other person, but beating the other person is the whole system's rigged. So she's got all kinds of super delegates. Now, what makes a super delegate?
But you were asking Dennis, how can you assert that people can make their education off the internet? You went from that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, what education do they need, Dennis? I mean, why would you want to get an education? That's the first question. What's the reason for an education?
Well, wow. I mean, for years and decades, that has been, everybody agrees that not only do we need grade school and high school education, but if you're going to become a doctor who's going to operate on people, then you need to have at least 4 more years, not just to get a bachelor's, but get a master's and get a doctorate degree.
Let me interject something. Why? You mean to tell me so everybody should become doctors and we should have no ditch diggers?
Oh, no, but I think there's many other jobs out there where you really need more than a high school education.
Why?
Well, because you're going to be doing some very, not just important things for people, but things that require more education.
Well, let me ask you a question. The things you do in everyday life, does it require somebody with an education? In other words, go through your day. You go through the day, you turn on the water to go wash your face, right?
Right.
Well, there's somebody who has to keep those water pipes running for you. That doesn't really require a very high education, does it?
No, right.
Okay, then you go ahead and you open up some packaging and you pour some milk and open up some lettuce or whatever you open up in the morning or rice or whatever you do. And you got this packaging, you throw that packaging into the trash, and then you take the trash outside and someone picks up the trash. You still haven't needed anybody with any big education, right?
Or the people that have provided the food that you just
the delivery or making the food. None of those people needed big education, did they?
Well, not those people, but if they're going to open up
he's just talking about a typical day.
No, I'm talking about a typical day. Most of the time, you don't need a higher education. You need a normal, across-the-board education for your own knowledge, personal knowledge. What you're saying, what the mainstream media is saying, which is what you're saying, is you need an education to get a better job, to make more money. That's the purpose of an education today. It is not. I know a professor who teaches.
It's not for the sake of being
It's
educated.
not for the purpose of learning. Like, it's not for your own curiosity's sake, which is what education should be for. Learning how, let's say, to set up an internet station would be sort of fun. It's fun. Maybe building a birdhouse, or maybe cutting the grass, or planting flowers, or cooking. You really don't need an education for that. You can learn because you're curious. It's not going to make you any more money, but people learn these things because they're curious. We were thinking about starting a school that's not accredited, so people can learn because they're curious. But most people want an education to make more money. And the reality is, you don't need people in this world who are that well educated to make more money. Now,
Under most circumstances.
now occasionally you need a doctor. But no, a doctor should not be worth that much more than a freight handler, or a garbage man, or a ditch digger. He should be worth a little more because he spent some time going to school.
But you very seldom need that person.
But you don't need them.
You need the other people all the time.
Right.
Every day.
Every single day you need someone who is not educated, who can physically do the work you need to get done.
Or you're doing the work.
And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that you're right. Education should be
free,
open to every human being on the planet for as much as they choose to have. That would make us.
But it shouldn't just be pointed at what kind of high-paying job.
You're right. Get rid of the high-paying job because of the education.
Right.
So we have to look at the whole problem. And the reason why people want an education in most cases is to,
beyond high school.
Beyond high school is to get a better job, to get a good paying job, and they don't have to physically work. Then they go, which is interesting to me, is I see all these professors, they get these high paying jobs, and they don't do any physical work because they hire a gardener, they hire the mason, they hire the people to do the physical work for them,
etc.
And then they go out into the gym and they have to run every day to get their endorphins up.
Hire somebody to do aerobics with them.
And they have to do aerobics, so they want to start doing something, some yuppie-ized thing that they need something to do because they're not exercising. Well, so that's
or
really,
they do sports,
and that's again where the
like golf or tennis. Or
and then let me go back to your statement about politics. We have a president a few miles.
So are you suggesting that we do all our own plumbing and do
No, I'm just suggesting that
ditch digging and
there's certain things I can't do.
You can do your own gardening if you have the time.
That's the key. The freedom here is freedom of time, and freedom doesn't mean freedom to speak, because we can speak all we want, but if mainstream media blocks us out, and when there's 6-7 billion people on the planet, you really don't have any freedom of speech. When you talk about politics, as you're talking about someone who promised to close Guantanamo Bay. Is it Guantanamo?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Guantanamo?
Yeah, Guantanamo.
And close that up and bring back our troops. Well, the only reason why to do that is they're there because to control the money sequence from the oil. And what you're saying, and makes very good sense, is don't use fossil fuel, use a renewable energy source.
Wait, how did you make Guantanamo connection to the fossil
Because the
fuel?
reason why, Dennis, tell me if I'm wrong, you want to close Guantanamo Bay up, and our president promised that, to bring our troops home, so we don't need the troops. And the reason why we don't need the troops is because we don't have to use fossil fuel. Is that your connection you made, Dennis?
Right.
So I'm saying to you that all these connections are based on money. They're based on the economic system, and that's where the HREM comes in on Bridges programming. We're trying to explain to you that if everybody understands and agrees, like you mentioned that somewhere in your conversation that we all agree, well, that's an agreement. We all agree that every human being has to have their basic needs met. We agree to that. Now we need to have that in agreement. Now, how do we measure that? We measure that with in physics, physical things that we all live about 80 years of age. That's physics. We may live longer, we may live less. There's a subjective part in there, but in most cases, giving the proper diet, some proper health care, barring accidents, we can live about 80 years of age with a good sense of mind is still working reasonably well. The body's working okay, not great, but okay. And then we normally die around that age. So 80 years of age. Now, 1 day of work a day, or 1 hour a day, or
No,
one
day
a week
of your work week.
7 hours a day, 7 hours a week, or 1 day a week should give you your basic needs met. The education, as we spoke earlier, should be wide open as far as you could go using the internet. And if you say it's 95%, I don't know where you got that number from, but it's close enough for me. I'll accept that, because I do get a lot of information off the internet. Not all of it, but a good portion of the things I'm looking for is on the internet. Now, whether it's real or not real, I don't know. But
Well, you have to make a decision about that by comparing other information.
and I do know that through physics and physics professors who study this, that I need about 1 million energy units, we're going to call them calories, of food a year for me to survive. And every human being in the world requires the same amount of those calories. Without them, they will die, and they can't eat too much more than that. Same holds true
So what you're saying is all the common things that we have,
with things
we
necessary.
have in common as far as our needs in order to survive as humans.
Is measurable, and that's water as well as another 1 million
And
energy
it's an
units.
important consideration, the survival of I mean, if we're going to consider, we are a species together, and we're all going to float or sink as a species
now
together.
the planet. Now Dennis says, I want to save the planet, and he said that by when he started out. You said that by, well, we want to bring our troops home. We want to put solar panels on the roofs. We want to make everything like that. And I agree. However, I don't.
There's more basic things to satisfy
right. We
first.
have to be. The planet's going to be here no matter what. What you're saying is you want to save our species to be able to live on this planet, on this spaceship that
And
we're
that
on.
involves a different kind of
Thinking process.
basis. Right.
So we need to figure out, and I think all we need is a very simple thing. We just very simply need a measurement, a human renewable energy measure. That's all we need.
And that has to function within our economic system.
Right.
That'll make our economics an actual real, based on something real, on something physical.
Right. And now we get back to the politics.
And it'll be more like a science than it is.
It
now.
is a science. It is the measurement is the science.
No, I'm talking about economics.
Well, the economic system is a belief system.
Yeah. I'm saying that this kind of measure, if it's used in the economic system to be the focus and the point of our economic system, our human economic system, that it will make it more like a science economics than a belief system.
And we don't,
which is what we have now. We believe in
money,
the way that people are saying the money values are. We believe and we accept that profit is the most important function of our economics. We believe and accept that our education should only be focused on what can be make the most profit for us, what kind of job can make the most profit. If we have that kind of training, we're not certainly becoming not generalists anymore. We're not in a renaissance of, let's say, an opening of knowledge.
Yesterday we were talking to somebody who wanted to be an artist, and you said to her, and you're an artist, and you said to her, don't do that because you can't make a living at it.
Not if you start halfway.
Well,
I mean,
it's
actually,
still very hard
at 100 years old, sometimes people start painting or something, and it's a novelty that gets picked up on.
Well, rare.
Grandma Moses is an example of that. It's very, very, very rare. Usually, if you're going to try to establish an artistic basis for your work life, which is not a work life. I mean, this is the problem with the arts. There are certain arts that, yes, it's going to be clear that you're going to get paid. Like if you're an actor and you're working in a film, you're going to get paid. And that's considered an art form because drama and art and opera and performing are considered art forms. Okay, those are arts that you can, conceivably make a living at and make money at. There are other art forms that are not, this is not the presumption, this is not the purpose of them. And that's why I would discourage someone from saying, oh, I want to live and make a living. You can't really make a living.
Because of the way the society is today.
No, because of the nature of what art is. And that's another
but if they have their basic
altogether.
needs met.
Oh, if they did, then it doesn't matter at all. You can do if you're going into an art, like say poetry, painting, I mean, you want me to speak to this, that's true, writing, literature, or whatever your aspiration, music, composition, it depends on what part of the music, it gets complicated because there's some things that are now very commercialized, especially in the music business. But it's only a very few people who become the stars or the ones that actually benefit so much.
It's hard to stay alive.
The thing is that the arts, the point is that the arts in general, if you consider them the classical definition of what art is about, and you can research that yourself, it's not a money-making, it's not a activity that is meant for money. It's an enriching activity, and you are enriched by doing it. And you're
no value,
people that are.
It's not.
It has a different kind of value.
It has a value.
A value that can be easily converted.
I was talking to.
Cash.
I was talking to.
And that's why I discouraged.
I was talking to someone yesterday.
You were asking why I discouraged.
Yeah, well, no.
Someone from thinking about the arts as a way to make a living.
But you discourage them because of the way our system's working now, and they can't make a living the way the system is set up now. They
of
can't.
Course not. If you have an economic system under which only what you can sell is worthwhile, and only what you can make the most money off of is worthwhile, because most of the time, what you can sell and make money off of presently, as far as the arts are concerned, is not worthwhile. These are not the most valuable art type activities that people are doing. There are many artists working in total obscurity who are making and doing things that are we're never going to hear about, because they're not in that that realm where you can sell them easily for profit and profit off of them. So what we're getting is essentially what I would consider the mediocre and the stuff that's easily converted into cash. And so we're I think we're in a dark ages in a way for the arts in the United States.
We're in a desert of knowledge, in my opinion.
Well, and that too, because if you are always projecting, okay, how much money can I make off of this, and then you're looking to see how the audience respond to this, and I'll do some more of this instead of this because I know I can actually make money off of this. That's not art. That's advertising, commercialization. That's Capitalism. It's not. So the arts, as far as our economics are concerned, at this point, do not. There is no meeting point at all. There's no place that they can enter economics as we do it today, and they're not. That's not the place in social. That's not the function that they are. That's not their function in society. The arts, the function is to enrich people's lives, help deepen understanding of whatever you choose, whatever the artist focuses on, and can make more clear to the people around them. And everybody has this capacity, but we are not encouraged to develop it, because we are encouraged to develop only those capacities that we can derive profit from and get jobs in that will place us in a socioeconomic secure spot. And eventually, here where we're passing through, visiting my 94-year-old mother, and she's able to attain that age because she's in a very protected place in a
lots of care,
assisted living situation, and that she was able to afford because my parents were very careful all their lives with their money, and my father worked to get to the point where she would be okay when he died, and all this stuff. And this is not an unusual story. It's what we are born into. If you have a family, you're going to provide for all your kids and make sure they
theoretically, if you could.
So
but a lot of people can't, and that's the problem. They can't do that. No matter how hard they work, they can't get there.
Yeah.
And your brother was telling me yesterday. I said, well, it was good for us to come here and see your mom, and she was really excited to see you. And I said, well, what kind of monetary value can you place on that? And he couldn't answer that.
Well, you can place a monetary value.
Well, he always talks
that's
about.
That's like the arts.
He always talks
about.
You
can't place, if it's really art, there's no monetary value.
But he talks
about
on it. How much you're going to get for that. Well, the point is, what kind of value do you put on that? What value do you put on? I was talking to Dennis earlier today.
What was the point you were trying to make with Gary?
Well, that there's certain things that aren't monetary values.
Right, you can't
put a monetary value on it. You can't put money value on it. Like when I asked Dennis said to me, well, we have 1 minute to go. I said, yeah. How much would you pay for the last breath you're taking for the next minute? How much are you going to pay somebody so you can have an extra 1 minute of life left? The question is, how much is $1 worth?
You mean how much is a minute worth?
How much is your life worth for that 1 minute longer?
There's no way.
There is no way to do that. How much you
any more than you can determine a price for a real work of art. There's no price.
There is no such a thing as a real work of art.
Price for.
There's such a thing as what
do you think?
Well, there's no such thing.
No, people respond to what if something is evoking I mean, there are many pieces of music that you can agree.
And certain art, I agree with that, but there is no monetary value.
That's what I just said. I said there's no way that you can put a monetary value
and a matter
on a real piece of art.
And just the opposite goes through
but people try to, because they want
to control
to control it. They want to
buy it. They want to own it.
Look,
I mean, something that is like for instance, supposing
somehow powerful.
Let me ask that. Let me get
like
Dennis
this.
Back into here, because I want to get Dennis.
It's a shame, because
Dennis, let me ask you a question.
The artist didn't make them so that someone could hide them in their house.
I want to ask Dennis a question.
How rich they are.
When you go out in nature, do you think that's beautiful?
Yeah, that would be something to compare.
99% of the time, yes, I do.
Okay, now supposing I decide to buy it up and privatize it, and you can't look at nature without paying
you first,
right?
Or listen to birds sing. Or
listen to birds sing, right? Or anything that
or smell the fresh air without paying.
So there should be. It's the same thing holds true with art and music.
These are things that everybody owns.
Everyone should have access to.
Access. Ownership is not even a good word with that.
No, they have access to.
Because it's part of the most essential.
Let me ask you another question. Suppose you go out to this beautiful campsite that's pretty much free. You have to pay someone to sort of keep, pick up the garbage and keep the roads open so you can get into your campsite. And you're really enjoying the birds and the view and the quietness of it. And then someone comes over there with 3 barking dogs. Now, does he have the right to bring in, or she have the right to bring in 3 yapping dogs?
What, that are gonna bark constantly?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, in this country, I would say yes, people do have the right to do that.
So they have the right to bother you
And everyone
and
around.
everyone around them with their barking dogs.
And so that nobody can enjoy the peaceful park.
Right, and probably people would all get together and do something about that.
Okay, so and I had this conversation yesterday, actually, again. We talked about individual rights.
How far do they go?
Okay, now that would be, you feel as though human beings should have individual rights, individualism, right?
Right.
They can bring their barking dog into the park
So that means
and let it bark.
Right, so that means as an individual, I can bring, 20 dogs in and have them bark all night long.
And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I'm just saying you're in a country where people could do that.
Then if they did that, what would happen?
Well, we do have certain laws in this country where some things go beyond what is legal, and if it's illegal, you can,
So what you're saying, as an individual human being, as an individualist, which I am, I have to combine my individualist with other people who are individuals, and collectively, we have to have a rule set up so our individual quality of lives are not messed up by other people.
You could say that better. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. But...
So we need to be collectivists in some form to make sure our individual rights are protected. For instance, I have the right to own property. If I work hard and I build things, and in this society, I sell them and make money, I can then take that and invest it in more property, so I have individual property rights.
But meanwhile, if there's an artist that lives next to you and all they want to do is keep pursuing their composition or their writing or their painting or their poetry or whatever, and they have their basic needs met because they're working one day of their work week, a day a week,
doing whatever the collectivists
contributing to the social contract and whatever the collectivists need, which is them too. The collectivists are, we're all are
part of that,
because we know that we all need forks, we all need someone to collect the garbage, we all need, as we said, plumbers, we all need, very occasionally and hopefully never a doctor, now and then. We all need, there are things that society has to keep producing for everyone who has made that national and we would hope worldwide contract with each other as a human species. Yeah. But meanwhile, your ambition where you say, oh, I want to build a lot of houses and I want to rent them all and then I want to build some more, and then it's not going to have a destructive or discomforting effect on the person who wants to just work their basic needs portion, which is one day, 7 hours or 8 hours of work.
But they may
contributed to society of their work life.
Their artwork they're making, their work
that's
they're making.
That's not the work that we're talking about.
Right, but if the artwork...
That is not, in fact, people keep saying art is work and all this stuff. Art is different. And when you say it's work, you're saying, okay, it can be parlayed into money. And that's the point that where everything falls apart, because there is no value that can be placed on of a monetary value. I don't feel that there is a monetary value that can be equated to a real work of art. I just don't think so. I don't think that that's what art's purpose is. It's like nature. You made that comparison. Art is a gift from whoever is trying to produce it, and it's a gift to the rest of the human species, a gift that will hopefully help be comforting, more knowledge.
Well, let me go to the next.
You don't. It has an ineffable effect.
Right. But
That is
let's
not a monetary conversion.
Let's take that to the next. Let me compare that.
But you're not harming that person who wants to try to do that.
Let me compare.
By being ambitious and.
Let me compare your artwork. This is what you just explained.
I'm trying to explain.
Let me compare what you just explained.
Yeah.
To someone who just says, I'm going to build solar panels and give everybody the ability to have lights in their house so they can do what they want to do with the lighting. That's also a form, in my opinion, it's a form of art if you could do that.
Oh, sure. If you're a person who's an inventor and can make a more, or a person who's a researcher and discovers because of your leaps of,
or figure out a wheelchair that handicapped people can move around easily, or robotics, so they can make their quality of life better.
If your motivations are not just to make money, you can be a lot more creative.
So the key here is anything you can do, a human being, in my opinion. Now we have to redefine the word work. So I'm thinking, because of this conversation, Dennis, what do you think about this? Anything that defines, anything that makes a quality of life better for other human beings, and they're doing it to help other human beings.
In a more altruistic kind of
wouldn't that be a form of work?
Well, or a form of art, you would
or a form of art. So you can
either one.
Right. So in other words, if I help somebody across the street, or I volunteer at a ball game, or I volunteer at an old age home, or I volunteer, I'm working. I'm volunteering, but I'm still working. It's still a job. And I should be getting some kind of credit for that. So I have my basic life functions are met. So we have to re-clarify what work is. Do I need an education to volunteer at a nursing home? Well,
do we just need empathy and a heart and patience?
Do I need education for that? I'm asking Dennis.
Good question. Susan, you want to answer that?
Well, it's interesting because we're not educated to raise our children. We're not, and we have everyone, who starts a family or has, that's one of the very interesting things. Oh, that should come naturally, is the, what? But it's interesting at the end of life too, with the dissolving of abilities, that the older and older we get, our abilities change and dissolve and evolve in a different way. I'm not saying it's a worser way. I think it's not. I think it's poorly understood how we age, very poorly understood. And not many people are very interested in understanding it, because there's at least in the United States, a huge emphasis on youth and the beauty of
that's because of the
youth,
economic system,
and because that you can make a lot of money off of very beautiful young people and what they're thinking and doing, which is not usually that interesting, but it definitely, they're beautiful and they're fun to look at and fun to watch. So these things are easy things to be
low-picking fruit,
making some kind of profit off of. But when we talk about aging, okay, you need specialists to work with aging people, because they're making it into another business, and it's a huge business in the United States for people who can afford to go into assisted living. And a lot of people, they're even being encouraged to do this at the age of 60. And you're retired, go into one of these retirement communities,
spend your money.
And then the next step, okay, you've got your hospital there and the whole rationale, and everything's taken care of for you. We all, we're all a community, we all work together, but they're all old. And the people that are working with them are trained to work with them in a certain way. Why do we need training to know how to function around people who are old? There's no any more than we needed training function around babies and raise them so that they be independent.
You
There's
have certain proclivity to
there
that.
is an instinctive ability in everyone to know what to do in these situations. But if you make it a specialty, you can make money off of it.
Right.
And then you're taking people out of the context. You're saying you're encouraging old people to feel, oh my gosh, I can't be a burden on my family and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to be useful. And I mean, I don't have, all of the things that you hear as soon as you're not really that useful to the economic system, which is around, mid to late 60s or whatever, when you're encouraged to, get out of whatever job that you had, and then, okay, now you're free, free to deteriorate and die somewhere where we're not going to have to deal with you, or you can pay for a place, and that would be great because then you're contributing to the economic system. So those are your extremes, and it's very, very insidious. The way that's
the whole economic system.
The older populations, and I don't know if this, I think that this is not the case in most countries, but it is the case in the United States, that you're supposed to disappear, when you're aging, and do it somewhere where nobody can watch, and you will be a burden on your family if you somehow figure out some way to that's an eccentric thing to do, to be still part of, an extended family, like used to be the case, the natural thing for families to have many generations in a home. And it's interesting. I think that is changing because people just can't even, their families are so fractured apart by the economic demands that they've encountered, through their lifetimes. There maybe have been family bonds at some point, then they're broken because someone has to move to another state to work, or work and where you can make sufficient
money,
income,
right,
are the priority. And so there's nobody there where the old person is aging, and maybe there may have been a couple and they could take care of each other, but when there's just one, then what do? They have even a website, I think, What Do We Do with Mom? I think that's what it's called, and I wonder, it's interesting because a lot of times it is a woman who's survived her husband, and they've got a whole thing where they'll tell you, okay, these are all the different choices you have in your area, places you can put your mom, if you can't take, her into your home. And most people can't, they may be working jobs and raising kids themselves. And, mom may need a little bit of attention now and then. It's amazing how this has evolved to the point where we can't have easily extended family situations anymore, but they've figured out a way to make huge profit off of the aging population. In fact, since this is, and they're always saying it over and over and over again, so many what they call baby boomers aging out. That's another out, disappearing. That's another term. That that there is huge amount of profit being made off of this phenomenon right now, and I can see it just where my mom is. I know what they're charging her per month, and they've got probably 1,000 people in that facility, and they call themselves a non-profit, not for profit. Somebody's making profit. And it's extraordinary, and there are lots of places like this all throughout Florida, of course, and any of the warmer.
Well, the thing is, it's worldwide now. It is a worldwide problem, and then you have the expats going to different countries,
right? Trying to escape
the money,
the effect of the lemmings. You're saying,
right?
we're forced
we're
into
forced
a
into-
certain choices, and these are your only choices, and the guilt
But
trip
this
that's
is the
put on.
problems. Well, now here, now we think we have found the solution, and that's why we do these programs.
I mean, something like we're describing would not stop when you stop, your traditional work life. And a lot of people never stop working because they love what they're doing. Many
that's
many
fine.
artists are that way. Most
and
artists
lawyers
are that way.
and like.
But if you were guaranteed, because of you were born into the human species, you have a right to life at that point, and your contribution of one day a week of your work effort to your social context, whatever it is, throughout your work life, whatever that amounts to. Some people will get injured and won't be able to do it as long or won't be as healthy, but you're doing whatever is possible for you as an individual, and then you retire. There is a point where everyone agrees, you don't need to keep a particular schedule anymore, and then it doesn't stop. Your basic needs don't stop. They continue: food, shelter, and education till you die. So
education, food, and shelter.
Whatever way you want to say them, the order. I don't want to put a priority on any of them.
Well, there is a priority.
Well, you feel there is.
You have to
but
know.
You have to eat before you can think.
You have to know what to eat.
Well, you'll eat anything if you're hungry.
Well, you have
sorry.
to know you'll poison yourself if you eat anything.
Well,
you have to know.
Yes, that's
true. You have
true,
to know what to eat, and knowledge is the key issue as a species.
I'm just saying.
Knowledge is, and that's why Bernie, and we go back to the theoretical political
system. So the
system.
first teaching of food is when a baby nurses, when the mother tells them this is okay for you to nurse.
Right, and then not to put that in your mouth. Not to do that, not to eat that. You'll get sick.
Right.
Don't eat those berries.
And all these things are very, a woman knows these, just like we know how to behave around the very elderly. We do know. We know because we're in ourselves. We're all going to be there. We're all partially.
It's semi-instinctive.
It's I don't know what it is. It's because we're humans.
It's been taught.
We know.
It's been taught to us. We know that if you bang your foot, it hurts. If you kick someone, it's going to hurt them. If they kick you, it's going to hurt you.
But if you're being trained,
but that's part of an education system.
If you're being trained, let's say, to work with the elder, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is the process for this. This is you're eliminating a lot of the instinctive and important, I feel, things that you could make life even more comfortable for people as they're aging, because they understand and communicate in a different, not in a different way, but in a much more complete way than we are giving them. Most people are giving elderly people credit for, and they're dismissed because this person can hardly walk, so probably they can't think. But that's not true. It's just not a true assumption. This person can't dress themselves anymore. Oh, I guess maybe they're incompetent. Well, babies can't dress themselves either, and young children have difficulty with that until they learn it by the time they're maybe 2 or 3. So these things that doesn't mean that the baby's stupid. It just means that the baby needs help until they get the skills together. And it's the opposite, going out of the scene or off the stage. You're losing these basic abilities. Some people do never lose them, but some people do, and many people do. But this doesn't, it doesn't mean you have to have. You can't make assumptions about their mental state by what they're physically doing.
You could make assumptions. They may not be right, but that's
you
the problem.
can make assumptions, but they may not be right.
I have 4 minutes. I wanted to explain. Here's what you could do about this. And I talk to a lot of people. We know the problems. We believe the answer is, and we may be wrong, but we believe the answer is we need a measurement that says to human beings that all humanity has to have their basic needs met, their education, food, and shelter, and then it has to be measured. So it's not subjective, it's physically measured, so it's objective.
So that's why we put the renewable energy into it.
And it's got to be based on energy units. So we know we need to survive. We need education no matter what, and that should be wide open. That could be wide open.
Education to energy units.
You can't. Education is an emotion and it's a learning process, and that's what makes us human, and that's why it's the primary thing. The more education you have, the better the society.
Your energy units,
the better the society will be.
Involved in your interaction with whatever, internet or with
but we know
people that are trained.
Let me get to the point. You may be right, but the point is education. Education is the key thing here, and because of education, we know we can measure how many energy units we need for food. That can't be changed. It's about 1 million energy units. And we're going to call them calories because it sort of fits into that energy unit. From the sun for food. We need 1 million energy units from the sun. Again, we'll call them calories. That converts the salt water on the planet to the fresh water on the planet. And we need a certain amount of energy units, which does fluctuate depending upon where you live for your shelter. And that can be measured as well.
But I'm just going back to education.
No, let me finish this. Mm-hmm. So what we're asking you to do is, knowing that we have measured for the first time in history, there's a measurement for food, shelter, and life. Life is about 80 years of age. And we say for 1 day of work a week, all your basic needs, not your wants, can be measured. Okay. Now your wants would convert into what you learn, what you know, and that'll fluctuate. And education and wants makes us different than animals. So we need to get this measurement in place, just like gravity. So what
you're measuring is life, food, and shelter with energy units. The education is a
part of the mind,
necessary part of the life,
and that's subjective.
And that's
always subjective.
So that's like one of the things that we say.
And I'll give you, for instance, we can all agree that maybe this is a greenish shirt and this is a blue striped shirt or whatever. Susan's wearing a black shirt. The world can agree on that. The question is, you can't tell me what color this is because it's subjective. We'd have to compare it and agree upon the color as an agreement. That is objective, and we're going to have to come to that is subjective, and we have to come to an objective number. We have now come to an objective number on how many energy units you need for basic survival, for food and shelter, and we know you need education. So those are the three basic things, including life, of course, because we live only a certain amount of time. So for 1 day a week or 1 hour a day of work, and you have to redefine work, is what you need to stay alive. And that's what the HREM is. So what you need to do is to get out and tell your friends that the HREM, we need to get that in the vocabulary. Your job is to not join us, not give us money, get that message out. Thank you.
You would actually be working for a living then.
That's right. You'd
be one day a week.
You'd be working for a living. And thank you so much for listening. This has been Bridges Programming, Sunday on the Front Stoop, and we'll be back again next Wednesday at a normal time of 10 o'clock to 11. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone, well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.
So long, Dennis.
Fossil fuel affects our lives on ripples on lake.
Bye-bye.
Cars and farms and factories and
See you soon.
supplies go down, prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees.
Even trash can hurt to biofuels.
Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.